Good evening. This, the 19th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council, is now called to order. If you have cell phones, please turn them off or put them on vibrate. Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Christine Parker of Epiphany Church. If everyone would please stand for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. God of peace and justice, we ask your blessing on this meeting. We do not always or even often see clearly what is the right course of action, but we pray fervently that you would show us the way forward here in the work of this city council, in the commissions established tonight, in the resolutions offered tonight. You have called forth these your servants to lead in this time of uncertainty, this time of a lack of moral leadership, this time that showcases the blindness of some and the long-suffering of others. In each decision made, whether they be right or prove to be wrong, may they be made for the right reasons, that we might truly be the land of the free and the home of the brave, as they seek liberty and justice for all, but especially for those who have lost hope. Grant courage, wisdom, and humility to those who gather tonight, those who work tirelessly to hear the concerns of residents, who make the city run as smoothly as possible, who work to make our streets safe, and who fight for quality education for all. Work in them in such a way that they, like Isaiah, might be called the restorer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. Amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend. Pastor. I want to thank Pastor Parker for the invocation. The clerk will call the rolls of the members.
President Young, Cohen Scott, Dorsey Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Suxney, Clark. Yeah. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
It is the council custom to generalize the invocation and ask for motion. Motion by Councilman Scott, second by Councilman Cohen. All those in favor of generalize the invocation, say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We will now proceed with the adoption of the journal.
Mr. President, the journal of proceedings from the September 18th City Council meetings on the council members' desk.
The motion to approve the journal. Motion by Councilman Scott, second by Councilman Cohen. All those in favor of adopting the journal, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The journal is adopted. Executive nominations.
EA 17-0072, Elvis Guzman, member Hispanic Commission, District 11.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0073, Kathleen E. Long, member Hispanic Commission, District 1.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0074, Jamie Panig Agua, member Hispanic Commission, District 14.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0075, Mark E. Parker, member Hispanic Commission, District 1.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0076, Anna Marie Schwartz Caballero, member Hispanic Commission, District 3.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0077, Aaron N. Tamarchio, member Civil Service Commission.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0078, Alice Volpita, member Environmental Control Board, District 3.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0079, Christina Delgado, member Environmental Control Board, District 2.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0080, Daniel Harvey, member Environmental Control Board, District 14.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0081, Sance Reese, member Environmental Control Board, District 9.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee.
EA 17-0082, Steve Johnson, member Environmental Control Board, District 6.
This has been assigned to the Executive Appointments Committee. Look like Chairwoman Shannon Steve, you got a lot of people to take care of. All new people. Bills will be introduced.
City Council Bill 17-0132, City Streets opening Water Street and Hollingsworth Street for the purpose of condemning and opening Water Street extending from Grant Street easterly 157.35 feet more or less to South Calvert Street, and condemning and opening Hollingsworth Street extending from Water Street southerly 159.6 feet more or less to East Lombard Street as shown on Plat 234A37 and Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0133, City Streets closing Water Street and Hollingsworth Street for the purpose of condemning and closing Water Street, extending from Grant Street easterly 157.3 feet more or less to South Calvert Street, and Hollingsworth Street extending from Water Street southerly 159.6 feet more or less to East Lombard Street, as shown on Plat 234A37A in the Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0134, City Streets opening North Castle Street and 4 alleys of varying widths lying between East Eager Street, North Chester Street, Ashland Avenue, and North Washington Street for the purpose of condemning and opening North Castle Street and 4 alleys of varying widths lying between East Eager Street, North Chester Street, Ashland Avenue, and North Washington Street as shown on Plat 30487 in the Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0135, City Streets closing North Castle Street and 8 alleys of varying widths lying between East Eager Street, North Chester Street, Ashland Street, and North Washington Street for the purpose of condemning and closing North Castle Street and 8 alleys of varying widths lying between East Eager Street, North Chester Street, Ashland Avenue, and North Washington Street as shown on Plat 304A7A in Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0136, City Streets opening portion of Proctor Alley for the purpose of condemning and opening a portion of Proctor Alley bounded by East Biddle Street, Homewood Avenue, East Chase Street, and Greenmount Avenue as shown on Plat 284A14 Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0137, City Streets closing Proctor Street, a portion of Proctor Alley, and a 10-foot alley line between East Biddle Street, Homewood Avenue, East Chase Street, and Greenmount Avenue for the purpose of condemning and closing Proctor Street, a portion of Proctor Alley, and a 10-foot alley line between East Biddle Street, Homewood Avenue, East Chase Street, and Greenmount Avenue as shown on Plat 284A14A in the Office Department of Transportation, providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0138, City Streets closing a 10-foot alley extending from the north side of Esther Place for the purpose of condemning and closing a 10-foot alley extending from the north side of Esther Place 170 feet more or less to the south side of East Fayette Street as shown on Plat 276A25A in the Office Department of Transportation, providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0139, City Streets closing North Arch Street, Vine Street, and Ryman Court for the purpose of condemning and closing North Arch Street extending from West Lexington Street southerly 183 feet to the south side of Vine Street extending from Pine Street easterly 441.93 feet to the west side of North Arch Street, and Ryman Court extending from North Arch Street easterly 138.83 feet more or less to the west side of North Pearl Street as shown on Plat 345A19A in the Office Department of Transportation, providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to, which one was that? That one. Housing and Urban Affairs Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0140, sale of property, former beds of North Arch Street, Vine Street, and Ryman Court for the purpose of authorizing the mayor and City Council of Baltimore to sell to the public-private sale all its interests in certain parcels of land known as the former bed of Arch Street, extending from West Lexington Street southerly 183 feet to the south side of Vine Street, the former bed of Vine Street, extending from Pine Street easterly 441.93 to Arch Street to North Arch Street, and the former bed of Ryman Court extending from North Arch Street easterly 138.83 feet more or less to the west side of Pearl Street. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0141, right-of-way release for municipal utilities and services through the former bed of Jordan Street for the purpose of authorizing the release and surrender by the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore all its interests in an 18-foot wide right-of-way granted to the City of Baltimore, the location and course of an 18-foot wide right-of-way to be released being shown on Plat RW 20-36417 in the Office Department of Transportation, providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0142, City Property Grant of Easements, for the purpose of authorizing the mayor and City Council of Baltimore to grant 3 perpetual easements to supporting slopes through the property of the mayor and City Council of Baltimore as shown on MTA drawing RW-01. Maryland Transit Administration retaining wall number CN22475RW1NW south of Cold Spring Lane, Mayor and City Council of Baltimore property plat as shown and providing for a special effective date. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of the administration.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, Economic Development Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0143, repeal of ordinance 14-314, Remington Road Plan New Development for the purpose of repealing ordinance 14-314, which designated certain properties as a business plan new development known as Remington Road and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor Stokes, President Young.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Mr. President, this is just a repeal that was requested by the applicant. Thank you.
This has been assigned to Land Use. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, my colleague and I both share this planned unit development, and I'm not a sponsor, but I very much respect his opinions, and we've discussed this before. I have reasons for that, and I hope that we'll both have a chance to discuss this with the committee and with the council as we move forward with this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I want the council to know that this is 2/3 of the councilman district and a small portion of the councilwoman's district. I just want you to know that for the
I may
record.
say it is one of the smallest planned unit developments that we have. And what the part that I represent, since we're raising that issue, is the one that's still a work in progress because it is the R house. And therefore, in part of that part of the PUD, sets certain hours for restaurant operations and brings back certain uses that the PUD prohibits. For example, taverns, sale of ammunition, pool and billiard parlors. So this is not a work that's done. The other 2 parcels perhaps are, but this is just beginning, and these are provisions that speak to ongoing conditions in that location. So thank you very much
Thank you.
for pointing out the smallness of it all.
Right.
It's big to us.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll discuss that at Land Use, and I will discuss that with individual council people so you know why I said what I said. Okay. This has been assigned to Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0144, discounted city services and equipment for nonprofit events for the purpose of requiring that the city grant a 50% discount for city services and equipment used to support a nonprofit event, creating certain exceptions and exemptions, and generally relating to provision of city support to nonprofit events. Sponsor Clark, President Young, Bullock, Pinkett, Cohen, Reisinger, Stokes, Middleton.
Please note Councilman Schleifer as a co-sponsor. Any more co-sponsors? Please note Councilman Henry as a co-sponsor. Chair recognizes, please note that Councilman Costello is a co-sponsor. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the City Council. This is a bill to restore the 50% discount on special events permits for nonprofits, religious organizations, that do not pay federal, state, or local taxes, but exist as organizations here in this city. It specifically includes, in those categories, the mayor's Main Street program events, retail business, district business events, community, neighborhood, and homeowners association, and block club special events. This was, in effect, for years here in Baltimore City, the discount that is being introduced this evening. And in fact, last year, in the last term of office, our then colleague, Councilman Jim Kraft, introduced this very bill. The city council approved it, sent it to the mayor's office, but it was the end of the term, and so it was pocket vetoed. So this past year, this current year, that discount has not existed. It does exempt the Department of Recreation and Parks from having to give that discount because of their financial situation with general funds. It also prohibits it being applied to pub crawls and road races, pardon me, like the Ks, all the Ks. So they take a lot of effort and a lot of work in the city, and they are exempted from the discount, as they were in the previous bill. So I hope that we can, this time, successfully get it all the way to the, we can get this discount going. If I could just quote one thing that Bill Cole, our former colleague, as CEO of the Baltimore Development Corporation, wrote his agency letter last year, and to quote 2 sentences in it: with the expiration of the discount, nonprofits have had to identify ways to scale down their events in order to continue. This includes occupying smaller footprints, cutting events to one day as opposed to a weekend, and limiting the number of vendors at events. Without the discount on city services, these nonprofits struggle to hold their events, and some future events may be at risk of cancellation. This brings money to the community as well as costs money for the community. And he was showing the balance there between both ends of that equation. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Henry.
To add on to my colleague's remarks about this bill, that I would ask that when this bill comes up, it's coming to Judiciary, I believe. I'm not on that committee, so I can't be sure that I'll be at the hearing. If you could also make sure you look at the issue of the timing involved. The permits department takes a rather lengthy amount of time to approve these permits, but oftentimes they're not approved until right before the event. And one of the situations that I've seen regularly has been that by the time an entity finds out how much the permit is going to cost, there's not a lot of time to negotiate with the city over whether or not all the city services that permits has decided will be needed are actually going to be needed. I had a 5K in my district where the organizers deliberately changed the route to use fewer city streets from one year to the next in the hopes of reducing the cost, and instead the police department decided they needed 15 officers that they didn't need last year and tripled the size of the permit, and there was no time to negotiate that before the race went on. So I would just ask that you look at that issue as well as the total amount of fee being charged. Thank you.
I think Councilwoman Clark is putting in a resolution. Oh, go ahead.
I know we're not going to hold the hearing here, but I don't mind if we did. We will be I will be introducing at our next council meeting the issue of timing, the issue of process, the issue of what people are going through to get their permits, even for the smallest of events. So it's not just about money, although that's huge, huge disincentive right now. But it's also about the running around and the arbitrary instructions that keep evolving about the permit you want. So I think that we really need to get ourselves organized now in this new administration. Instead of cutting back on these events, let's make them run smoothly, and let's get more and more so we have something to rejoice in and be with our communities about.
Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to withdraw my remarks and offer them again next time when you introduce that resolution, or that resolution or bill. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly appreciate Councilman Henry's concern. I would like to just focus the scope of this hearing in the Judiciary Committee solely on Councilwoman Clark's bill. I'd also like to add that I've been in discussions with the administration, specifically with the Chief Operations Officer for the city, about some of the issues around special events and specifically that office at DOT, and would be more than happy to work with you or bring you into those discussions. But I know that someone in the administration is working on it. I would certainly encourage, if we don't do it together, to reach out to Pete Hammond. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. This has been assigned to the Judiciary Legislative Investigation Committee. Resolution to be introduced.
City Council Resolution 17-0048R, approving the submission of an application to the State of Maryland for the redesignation renewal of Baltimore City's enterprise zone focus areas. For the purpose of approving the submission for an application to the State of Maryland to redesignate and renew Baltimore City's enterprise zone focus areas. Sponsored City Council President on behalf of administration.
This has been assigned to the Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee.
City Council Resolution 17-0049R, recognize October as Anti-Bullying Month. For the purpose of recognizing October as Anti-Bullying Month and calling on all schools and organizations dealing with youth in Baltimore to do their part to bring awareness to the bullying crisis and work to end bullying. Sponsor Slide for President Young, Scott, Bullock, Pinkett, Cohen, Middleton, Stokes, Dorsey, Burnett, Snead, Clark, Reisinger.
Please note that Councilman Henry is a co-sponsor and Councilman Costello is co-sponsor. Chair recognizes Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you, Mr. President. So October is Anti-Bullying Month, and as all of us know, bullying is a serious issue that affects 50% of children in grades 4 through 12 over their school career. So all of us who think back to school, I'm sure you were either bullied or you bullied somebody or you saw bullying. And so, bullying has a simple solution to it, and that's to bring awareness to the issue. After last school year, I saw a news report where an 8-year-old took his own life at the end of the school year because he had been bullied that whole week prior, and he just had enough. And so what I found in doing extensive research is that bringing awareness to the issue really solves most of it, and that's the only way to reduce it and get rid of bullying altogether. And so, therefore, I call for this resolution to call on both the city schools as well as all organizations that deal with students to recognize this month and to build awareness. And on that note, I have spoken to people in Baltimore City schools that have been very receptive, and we are going to be rolling out a program for middle school students to bring awareness into the classroom and have a pledge program, and I'd encourage all my colleagues to participate as well in their council districts. And so therefore, I'd like to suspend the rules for immediate adoption.
Second by Councilman Cohen. All those in favor of suspend the rules for immediate adoption of this resolution, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries. The rules are suspended. Chair recognizes Councilman Schleifer.
I'd like to move this bill forward.
Second by Councilman Cohen. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 17-0049R, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. This resolution is adopted. You can find the consent calendar in Section A at the back of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Motion by Councilman Henry, second by Council Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. This calendar is approved. We will now move to bills on second reader. Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0109, rezoning a portion of 1700 South Road for the purpose of changing the zoning for the property for a portion of a property known as 1700 South Road as outlined in the company plat from the R1D zoning district to the OR1 zoning district.
Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, move the finding of facts on this bill.
Second by Councilman Schleifer. All those in favor of approving the finding of facts, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. The finding of facts are adopted. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, there's no amendments to this bill. I move the bill favorable.
Second by Councilman Schleifer. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Third reader to be held one meeting.
City Council Bill 17-0042, zoning conditions conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, variance 2304 North Fulton Avenue for the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 2304 North Fulton Avenue as outlined in the company plat, and granting a variance for certain off-street parking requirements.
Third reader for final passage.
City Council Bill 17-0076, Urban Renewal Coldstream Homestead Montebello Amendment for the purpose of amending the urban renewal plan for Coldstream Homestead Montebello to modify the provisions for certain land uses in the plan, waiving certain content and procedural requirements, making the provisions of this ordinance severable, providing for the application of this ordinance in conjunction with certain other ordinances, and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0077, repeal of Rosemont Urban Renewal Area and Plan for the purposes of repealing Ordinance 03-509 as amended by Ordinance 16-540, which established the Rosemont Urban Renewal Area and Plan and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Corn, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Milton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Vice Mayor Costello, Tuxton, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0095, Public Ethics Laws, City Board of Liquor License Commissioners conformance to new state law for the purpose of amending the Baltimore City Public Ethics Law to comply with Chapter 519, 2007 Acts of the General Assembly, which subjects the members and employees of virtually all local liquor control boards and local boards of liquor license commissioners, including the Baltimore City Board of Liquor License Commissioners, to the restrictions and requirements of the Maryland Public Ethics Law and, consequently, under the exclusive jurisdiction of the State Ethics Commission, and providing for a special effective date coinciding with the effective date of Chapter 519. President Young, Corn, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Milton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Tuxton, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0112, assignment of qualified energy conservation bond allocation for the purpose of assigning the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore's allocation of the national bond volume cap for qualified energy conservation bonds to the Maryland Clean Energy Center to finance solar electric projects for low-income residents located in the city and providing and setting a special effective date. President Young, Corn, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Tuxton, Clark.
This bill is approved. Committee announcements. I was over there last week. Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Executive Appointments Committee will hold a public hearing on September the 27th at 10 a.m. to view the following nominations for civil service: Aaron Tomacio on October the 18th at 10 a.m. The executive appointments will hold a hearing for Hispanic Commission: Elvis Guzman, Kathleen Long, Jamie Pagua, and Mark Parker. On Wednesday, October the 25th, the executive appointments will hold a hearing at 10 a.m. for Alice Vovita, Chris Diagro, Daniel Harvey, Sos Reese, and Steve Johnson. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman.
I'm sorry. And Hispanic Chairperson Anna Marie Schwartz Cabero.
Chair recognizes. Oh, you're not finished?
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Chairman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, we're having a hearing outside of our normal time and date. So on Wednesday, October the 25th, Housing Urban Affairs will be hearing 17-0037R, which is a resolution that was introduced by our colleague, Mary Pat Clark, around the Dollar House program for the 21st century. We thought it was so important that we'd have a later time and actually have it televised on Charm TV. So that will be on the 25th, and that's at 5 p.m. here in Council Chambers. Also on November 16th, Thursday, 2 p.m., we will be hearing the landmark designation for Metropolitan United Methodist Church. It is a church in the 9th District. It's a staple in the West Baltimore community. And again, that will be on Thursday, November 16th, 2 p.m. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Judiciary and Legislative Investigations Committee will hold a hearing on Tuesday, November 7th at 10 a.m. on Bill 17-0040R. This is increased transparency about police seized property at the request of Councilman Stokes. The Judiciary and Legislative Investigations Committee will hold a hearing on Monday, November 20th at 5 p.m. on Bill 17-0046R. Request for state action, police redistricting at the request of Councilman Brandon Scott. This will be televised. The Budget and Appropriations Committee will hold its quarterly budget briefing on Tuesday, October 10th at 2 p.m. in Chambers. That's Bill 17-0003R, quarterly budget briefings. And this will be to discuss fiscal year 2017 closeout. And the Budget and Appropriations Committee will also hear on Tuesday, October 10th at 2:05 p.m. 17-0004R, budget oversight hearings for Baltimore City Public Schools. As the council knows, we usually have these quarterly hearings. The Bureau of Budget Management and Research didn't want to do one of these until mid-November, which I didn't really think was reasonable. So we're going to move ahead with these hearings in October. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, members of the council, the Land Use and Transportation Committee will hold a hearing on Bill 17-0100 on Wednesday, November the 8th at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a repeal of the ordinance 11-571. It's the district at Canton Crossing. It's a PUD. The committee will also hold a hearing on Bill 17-0103 on Wednesday, November 8th at 1:15 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a rezoning at 1700 West 41st Street. The committee will hold a hearing on Bill 17-0104 on Wednesday, November 8th at 1:30 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a zoning. It's a conditional use tavern located at 1700 West 41st Street. The committee will hold a hearing on Bill 17-0079 on Wednesday, November 15th at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a rezoning at 2300 Edmondson Avenue. Mr. President, I ask for a move suspension of rules 10-2.
Second by Council Vice President Middleton. All those in favor, suspend the rules, announce the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carried. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Committee will hold a bill on 17-0118 on Wednesday, November the 15th at 1:15 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a zoning, a conditional use retail goods establishment with alcoholic beverage sales located at 2300 Edmondson Avenue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any more committee announcements? Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move for suspension of rules 10-2, 10-3.
Second by Councilman Scott. All those in favor of suspending the rules to announce the hearing, say aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carried. Chair recognizes Chairman Middleton.
Thank you. The Taxation, Finance, and Economic Development Committee will hear City Council Bill 17-0048R. That was today's resolution on Thursday, October 19th at 10:10 a.m. here in council chambers. And it's time sensitive because it is the application to the state of Maryland for the redesignation and renewal of Baltimore City's enterprise zone focus areas. So I basically added it to a hearing that is already scheduled. And also the Committee of the Whole will hear City Council Bill 17-0020R Thursday, November 9th at 10 a.m. here in council chambers. And that is a oversight hearing on the private development incentives. And again, that is the Committee of the Whole.
Chair recognizes, you got a committee announcement? Okay, Chair recognizes Chairman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the council, I rise to just provide an update that the council received last week from the health department and the police department regarding the overdose crisis and epidemic here in Baltimore. We had this hearing at the request of Councilwoman Sneed from the 13th District, but the information that we learned we think is very important for the citizens to know as well as our council colleagues. So, as of last Tuesday, when we had this hearing, there were 632 overdoses in the city. That shows you the amount and how serious this is for Baltimore. However, that does not compare to the amount of reversers. For example, at that point last week, the fire department had reversed over 4,500 overdoses in the city. That's 17 a day. 17 a day. The police department had reversed an additional 850. So we know that overdoses are a problem for Baltimore. We're glad that the rest of the state and the rest of the country, now that people who are not black are dying from opioid overdoses, have realized this is an epidemic. But we have to dig even deeper into this issue because, unfortunately, Mr. President, we found out at that hearing that the city spends actually $0 in general funds for the Narcan. Zero. So I think that for my council colleagues, that's something that we have to focus on for the upcoming budget so that we can The more that we have, the more they can save, so that we can, and this is just, we don't know how many people the organizations, the nonprofits that the health department deals with have saved with the things that we give them, because there's no way to track those. We only know the agencies that, you know, we control or quasi-control in the health department and the police department. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, committee announcements, okay? All right, so I'm waiting on the hearing date. Chair recognizes Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this Thursday at 5:30 p.m., that's September 28th, we will hold a legislative oversight hearing investigating the Baltimore City Public School System's blueprint. This is the new strategic document that Dr. Santelices put out. And Mr. President, we are holding this hearing at your behest. So hope to see the entire committee there. It is at Mergenthaler. You're welcome, Brandon.
Committee announcements. Regular announcement. I'd like to wish a happy birthday to to Chairman Bullock. His birthday is coming up on October the 6th. Happy birthday. I'm not going to ask the council choir to sing today. Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Isn't Councilman Pink's birthday coming up too? We have a meeting before
What
then.
is yours?
So art is happening all the time in Baltimore City. It's a great city for that. We just had a great Baltimore Book Festival that did not feature Rachel Dolezal. We now have Banned Book Week, right? So if there's a book that's ever been banned, this is a good week to pick it up and get into something that somebody thought you should not have the right to know about. It's a good week, at least, to start one of those. I know we're all pretty busy, but it's Banned Book Week, and Councilman Burnett showed some pictures to me earlier that showed that even some kids here in the city are participating in this at Enoch Pratt Libraries for free. This week, there's a lot going on before our next council meeting on October 16th, but this week there's a couple of things that are interesting. Adam Davies, if you've never been to the top of the World Trade Center, there's a gallery there, the Top of the World Gallery. This would be a good week to go there on Thursday between 5:30 and 7:30 and see work from one of the artists in residence from the Creative Alliance, Adam Davies, photographer, buildings and structures from around the country. And you could even just do that on your way to see Bone Thugs and Harmony at the Baltimore Soundstage a couple blocks away. If you want to go out for theater, there's one thing. The Iron Crow Theater opens their show this weekend at the Theater Project. The Cradle Will Rock, and this one is interesting. I like the arts because politics and arts are like the two things that I couldn't imagine life being without. So it's interesting when the two converge with something like The Cradle Will Rock. Their write-up says it's an unabashedly anti-capitalist musical from 1937. This musical was the first musical ever shut down by the federal government for fear of societal revolt. It is a defiant indictment of capitalism and socio-political corruption. The Cradle Will Rock is as much an attack on wealth and the political power it unjustly wields as it is an homage to those with nothing fighting to survive. Thank you, Mr. Council President and colleagues.
Thank you. It's Henry, then you, Councilman. Then it's Councilman Slifer, then you, Councilman Coe.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask for a moment of silence tonight for a former member of this body. Last Wednesday, September 20th, was the 9th anniversary of the tragic killing of former Councilman Kenneth N. Harris Sr., and so I'll be asking tonight for a moment of silence for that. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the council, I rise to briefly talk about another epidemic, unfortunately attacking our city, and that's the violence epidemic in Baltimore. I will ask that Councilwoman Middleton honor a moment of silence for now the 258 homicide victims in the city this year. There's been 29 homicides in the past 30 days and 10 in the past week. We know that this violence is at epidemic levels, so we must alter the way that we're operating. Everything that we do that is attached to violence reduction, or things that should be attached to violence reduction that are not, should be relooked at. Clearly, the strategy isn't working. Nothing that we're doing seems to be making a big dent in this, so we all have to look at what we're doing and do things differently, because people are dying. And this isn't just in Baltimore. It's happening all across the country. It's happening everywhere. In fact, there's a young girl who lives in my district who is paralyzed, at least temporarily, not because someone in the city did something, but over where I live, when you're close to the county, a bullet literally flew into the city from the county and hit her. This is happening everywhere, and we have to understand what is going on our streets, and we have to do things differently. We cannot continue to operate within the manner that we're operating in. But I move on to another topic. This past weekend, if anyone just happened to be watching NFL, they saw that there was a bunch of protests going on in response to President Trump and him saying things about players and how they should be fired and using words that I would not use, and I would hope that the President of the United States would not use, but we know that the office has been taken down a notch by Mr. Trump. Let's be clear. We all know that this man isn't fit to be president. We all know that. And we should not be surprised by anything that comes out of his mouth. But we also should not be tricked. The NFL owners could care less about the actual reason why the protest started. They are doing this simply because now Trump has attacked the one thing that they value above all, and that's their pockets. Let's be clear about that. This is what they have turned this into. So what we have to do is not forget, Pastor Parker mentioned earlier, justice for all. That's how this started. One man taking a knee for justice for all, something that this country is supposed to be about. Kneeling is universally seen as a sign of respect no matter where you are on this planet Earth. And we cannot allow people to turn that into a sign of disrespect, especially when, until recently, every NFL player was sitting during the national anthem because they were in the locker room. Some of them were probably in the bathroom. This is a new phenomenon, them being on the field. Do not be tricked by what's going on. We have to remember what this is about. And all of us here locally have to continue to work for that goal so that everyone, no matter their color, this is about race. The president can say that it's not, but it is. It's about race. The thing that we don't like to talk about in this country, the thing that we like to try to put in the closet, but it's never going to go away until we talk about it. And that's what this is about. This is about people feeling like young black men, no matter if they're millionaires or not, should know their place and keep their mouths shut. But they should realize that those days are over, and the conversations about people being uncomfortable, they're going to continue to be uncomfortable. The NBA season is coming. We know that this issue is going to continue to be pushed. This is something that's very important when you get to the ground level. Forget about the NFL. Forget about the president. Forget about the players. Think about these people that are the forgotten, whose families have been forgotten for generations ever since we stepped foot forcefully on this continent. Thank you.
Chair recognizes. I don't forgot. Councilman Cohen. It doesn't matter. Somebody can stand up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Today, members of the Education and Youth Committee stood with students, parents, a pastor, and community members over in Irvington in Councilman Burnett's district in order to call upon the MSDE, Maryland State Department of Education, to swiftly conduct an audit of our school bus system. As we all know, last November there was a tragic and fatal crash in Irvington that left 6 people dead. MSDE was supposed to then quickly audit the school buses to make sure it didn't happen again. The driver had a history of seizures. He also had been involved in 12 prior crashes. The audit has not started. We're back to school. Kids have been in school for 3 weeks. It's completely unacceptable. That's why our committee today called on MSDE to get this thing going. They have responded and said they will be commencing the audit within the week. We will continue to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Schleifer. Anybody else on here?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request a moment of silence for Reverend Hosea Hall Sr., who passed on Tuesday the 19th. He was a 60-year resident of West Arlington and Grove Park and a pastor for 70 years. And his greatest accomplishment is being the grandfather of Tommy Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, before I go over here for announcements, I want to congratulate Council Vice President Sharon Green Middleton. She received her Fellowship Award of Excellence in Local Government on Saturday. Was it Saturday? Saturday? All right. All right. And also on Sunday, various council members were honored by the American Association of the Korean Economic Development Committee. I don't know who all was there. I know Shannon was there, Robert, Councilman Reisinger, Sharon Green Middleton, I think Leon Pinkett, and some of the rest of you all were invited. So, and I know they have awards for all of you. So I want to congratulate all of the winners. Any more announcements? Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
I would like to, you also deserve some congratulations because you received an award from the Asian American Development Corporation, and you're only the second non-Asian person in their existence of their corporation, and that was the Phoenix Award. And as you know, we have several Asian American businesses in our city, and the good thing that I picked up from the meeting dinner was that they realized that there has to be some changes within their business community, and they're willing to make those changes and make a difference and start to engage in our communities. And I'm looking forward to that relationship. And also congratulations to my colleagues that also received plaques yesterday evening. And on that note, the next meeting of the City Council will be held on Monday, October 16th, 2017, and we will have a moment of silence for former councilperson, Councilman Ken Harris. This is his 9th anniversary. It was his 9th anniversary, September 20th. And also a moment of silence for the families of the homicide victims of the 258 is the number we have reached now. And also, I'd just like to say on that as well, it's perfect timing for the bill that Councilwoman Clark is going to be hearing, because some of the activities that we're going to be having in our communities are going to be more police-related activities within our streets, and just trying to bring communities together, and we're going to need help with that. So keep that in mind when we have our hearing. And that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. One more moment of silence. Reverend Josiah Hall Sr. passed on Tuesday, 9/17, a 60-year resident of West Arlington and Grove Park, and a pastor for 70 years. And he's the grandfather of Thomas Phillips.
Thank you. There being no further business, this concludes the 19th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council. Good night.